Hello, and welcome to A Fine Time for Healing, a sanctuary for your emotional well-being. Your host is Randi Fine, author of the memoir Finally and the inspirational self-help book Awaken from Life. And now, here's Randi.
Good morning. Thank you for tuning in today to listen to A Fine Time for Healing. I am your talk radio show host, Randi Fine. In 2014, I wrote an article called What is an Empath and Are You One?, which I posted on my website. Several other online publications picked it up, and the article went viral. Since then, hundreds of people have written to me telling me that after reading the article, they finally understand who they are. At the basic level, empaths are people who are highly sensitive to the energy and the emotions of the people, animals, and sometimes even the spiritual imprints that exist around them. What sets empaths apart is our higher than average level of empathy, the ease at which we can connect to the feeling of others, and the range within which we can do it. If you are interested in reading that article and learning more, you can visit my website, randigfine.com, and search for What is an Empath and Are You One? Empathy is an emotion that most of us have that allows us to understand and feel the emotions of others. We have consciences. Those who do have empathy, which is most of us, cannot imagine what it would be like to not have it. Empaths like me are at one extreme end of the spectrum of this emotion. Today we will be talking about the extreme opposite end of the spectrum, people who do not possess the emotion empathy at all, people who do not have a conscience. These people in general are known as psychopaths. We have all heard about psychopaths who commit unfathomable, despicable, disgusting crimes against other people. We know that these people are monsters and feel fearful of the fact that they walk among us, though most of us believe that they are few and far between us in society, and that we would somehow sense their diabolical intentions for us. As you will learn today, that point of view, one that most of us have, is one that is very naive. And because of the tremendous destruction psychopaths reap on society, it is vital for all of us to be aware of their existence and to recognize their behavior traits. My special guest today, Stefan Verstappen, wants us all to wake up to the prevalence of psychopaths in our everyday lives. He will explain why, within the highest circles of power and wealth, a lack of pity and remorse is practically a prerequisite to success, and why only the psychopathic mentality can thrive. Stefan Verstappen is a Canadian writer, researcher, adventurer, and documentary maker. He has published 6 books and several dozens of articles on a variety of subjects. While researching various histories for his book, The 36 Strategies of Ancient China, Stefan noticed a recurring pattern in the personality types of great leaders. That led him to begin researching personality disorders and investigating why our society, one where everyone desires morality, is actually so corrupt. Stefan incorporated his research on this subject in his latest book, The Art of Urban Survival. He has so much to share with us today, so let's get started by giving Stefan Verstappen a warm welcome. Good morning, Stefan. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Oh, you're very welcome, Randi, and thank you for having me on.
Oh, this is going to be great. I mean, this is a topic that to me is so very fascinating. Like I said, because I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum.
And you know what? I was very interested in that article. I've read it, and it's excellent. And it's actually a subject I'm also very interested in, and that is, like you said, the other end of the spectrum, the empaths. So, yeah, right back at you.
That's great. Thank you for reading that article.
Yeah.
So, how prevalent is psychopathy in our society?
Well, there's quite a bit of debate over the statistical numbers of psychopaths, and I think the problem, or one of the confusions between, how many there are, is because we can divide them up into basically two types of psychopaths. Now, if you read the Diagnostics and Statistics Manual put out by the Association of Psychology, they divide, psychopaths into dozens of subgroups. But for our purposes, just to survive living in our society, we can divide them into two basic types. One you would call like a primary psychopath, somebody who was, born that way or had that gene triggered in an epigenetic fashion early in life, so that they kind of grew up being a psychopath, and they are, the dyed in the wool. They're the ones that were born that way or early on in their development became a psychopath. And the statistics for how many of this type of psychopaths range from 1 to 5%. But there's a second type of psychopath, and these are people that weren't necessarily born psychopaths and may not have had that gene triggered or was born with that gene, but instead it became a learned behavior, often through things like child abuse and peer pressure and drug abuse, or even an injury to the head. If you fell out of a tree when you were 8, it might have affected your brain and maybe turned you into a psychopath. So I would call these people secondary psychopaths. They are the ones that are kind of conditioned by our culture, and we can get into this later, but there can be no doubt that our modern culture is conducive to training people into a psychopathic value system. And so if you don't have a strong moral character, and if you weren't born an empath, then it would be easy for you to be, kind of led in towards the dark side, so to speak, and to start to exhibit psychopathic behavior yourself. And so the number of, secondary psychopaths, I would say, ranges as high as 20%, 25% possibly.
Now, what would cause somebody to go over to that, to begin to lose their conscience?
Well, that's really the $1 million question. I don't know. There's some theories. You can question it. I have no idea. I would say people that don't have a strong character. As you go through life, you meet a lot of people, and most people are okay. But even among the people that they're okay, there's not a lot of them that have a strong character, that have a strong drive, that have a real, concrete self-identity and know who they are and live according to their own, their own personality. And so, they're kind of wishy-washy. I don't know. Can you say they're weak-willed, or they're easily influenced, or they're not too intelligent? Is it a matter of intelligence? Is it a matter of strength or upbringing? I don't know. But those people that don't have a strong moral character are more easily swayed into, behaving like a psychopath. Because, listen, it's an advantage in our society to behave like one. People with with empathy are at a distinct disadvantage in many areas, especially in the struggle for power and money and position. You will be at a disadvantage because of your empathy, because what works in a competitive environment is what is called the cheating strategy, the ability to lie and scheme and backstab and gossip and the whole bag of dirty tricks. And if you're willing to employ a bag of dirty tricks, chances are you will be more successful in business, you'll be more successful in politics. And so what kind of people can use those dirty tricks? I can't. I'm empathic. I don't have the ability to lie to everybody I meet. But psychopaths that don't have, an empathy and have no conscience, they're easily able to use those techniques. And so if you want to become successful in our current system, then learning to act like a psychopath, unfortunately, gives you an advantage. And so people that are, kind of weak-willed, don't have a real strong character and a strong moral foundation, that are easily bought off, so to speak, they'll start to adopt those characteristics.
Okay, that's really, that's pretty frightening that could happen to somebody. And you talk about in your book, you talk about government and things like that. Have all our presidents been psychopaths?
I would say so. I know it's a hard thing to say, but the fact of the matter is, when you study the higher echelons of power, and this is how where a lot of my information came from, when I studied the Chinese history and Japanese and early English history, and when you read the histories of the courts, the kings and the emperors, and what went around them, the intrigues and the conspiracies and the body count, being near the king was always a dangerous situation, and the kings and emperors were always, paranoid because they thought people were out to kill them. And of course they were right. Everybody was out to kill them. They were quite natural, quite justified in being paranoid, because when you have that kind of power, that attracts the worst type of people. And so they will struggle amongst each other, and the most ruthless will win. And therefore, what tends to happen is in the higher echelons of power, the top of the pyramid, the most ruthless and cruel and cunning will tend to get to that position. So, our society is not all that much more advanced than, ancient and medieval cultures. It still takes a lot of cunning and ruthlessness to reach the top, and statistically speaking, and based on, all the evidence, I would have to suggest that pretty much every president has been a psychopath, certainly for the last 60 years or so.
Some are more obvious than others. I have to say that.
Well, some are better at hiding it, right?
That's true. That's so true. So what are some of the key characteristics of a psychopath?
Well, there are, excuse me, the primary characteristic is a lack of conscience. They don't feel guilt. They can, commit all kinds of horrendous actions, and they don't feel anything about it. They can hurt people, they can manipulate, they can lie. They don't blush, they don't feel ashamed. You can call them out. You can catch them red-handed raping a 12-year-old. They wouldn't blush. They wouldn't hesitate to scream at you for, claim that they were the victim of the 12-year-old. I mean, they just don't have a conscience, and they don't feel guilt. And they understand that they should fake having a conscience. So they're very good actors and actresses. They can convince you. I mean, the first thing I tell people is that don't think that you can't be fooled, because that makes you vulnerable to being fooled. There's people that think to themselves, oh, yeah, well, I can spot them because they'll have a snidely whiplash mustache that they continuously twirl, and they'll have bug eyes, and they'll look shady. No, they don't look like that at all. As a matter of fact, you will probably be more attracted and more trusting of a psychopath than you would of an empath. Empaths, have a lot of self-doubt because we question ourselves, and therefore we often feel guilty even when we shouldn't. And so if you want somebody that kind of looks a little bit guilty, empaths are the ones, but the psychopaths will show no sign of that. So you would tend to trust them more than you would trust somebody else. I myself am, surprised at myself how often I would like a psychopath. I've had, friends that were psychopaths. I like them. They're charming. They're fun to be around. They know how to work a room, Right. The only thing is that you can never trust them because they just don't care about you. And they're charming and amusing and trustworthy for as long as they can get something out of you and for as long as you don't stand in their way. But the minute you are of no use to them, or the minute they feel that you're a threat, you will be eliminated. So it's not just that they don't have a conscience. You can't tell just from looking for that. What gives them away is kind of what we would call a leak. They would do things that they haven't trained for or rehearsed that would reveal that they might not have a conscience. For example, I used the example in my video, when attending a funeral, they will look at all the mourners in the reception, and they'll see everybody making a sad face, and they will know how to make a sad face because they've rehearsed that in the mirror since they were 8 years old, how to make a sad face and how to look concerned. And so they will put on that face, but at the same time, they might make an inappropriate sexual flirtation with the widow. Now, somebody with a conscience would instinctively know that you do not flirt with the widow at her husband's funeral. That's not something you have to read in a book not to do. That's not something you need to go to church and have the priest say, listen, don't flirt with the widow at a funeral. You won't find that information readily available. It's because it's something that people would instinctively know not to do if you have a conscience. But a psychopath doesn't have that. And so for those kind of situations where they haven't researched it already, how to behave, they might do something that would reveal a complete lack of conscience. So that would be the first clue. You can add to that a lot of qualities and characteristics that all of us suffer from or have to some degree. Vanity, compulsive lying. Psychopaths tend to be compulsive liars, and they're very good at it. As a matter of fact, they would rather lie than tell the truth, even when telling the truth would be more beneficial to them than lying would. It's a strange, nobody can explain why that is. It's just that the love of fooling people is so great that they would rather lie to you. So compulsive liars are among them. Impulsive behavior, they'll do things, without thinking about it to get immediate gratification. They also need to be the center of attention most of the time. That's why a lot of the celebrities, they're psychopaths. They might not be, evil, malevolent, blood-sucking psychopaths, but they're not good people. They're just selfish, self-centered people. And that's why they become celebrities, because they thrive off of the adoration of and the attention that they receive from being a celebrity. So those are a couple of the signs.
I've written extensively and actually talked extensively about narcissistic personality disorder, and I know it's the personality disorder is one that lacks empathy, and I am a adult survivor of a mother with narcissistic personality disorder. She was really good. She was really good. I mean, she hit it really good. She managed to hide it. Now that she's exposed, it's so funny how obvious it is. But you say that narcissism is like at the lower end of the spectrum of psychopathy. Is that correct?
Well, that would be. I would agree with that statement. The degree of evil is and evil, of course, is a subjective term and, has religious connotations, but I don't know how else to describe it, the malevolence. The narcissists tend to be less malevolent, generally speaking, than the full-blown psychopaths. You have, at the one extreme, the sadistic serial killer, and those are the people most people would associate with the word psychopath. So the Jeffrey Dahmers, the Ted Bundys, the Hillside Stranglers, these are people that enjoy inflicting pain and death on other people. And of course, yes, they're psychopaths, but because of their particular kink, their personality twist, they enjoy sadistic brutality. And so I would rate them as being very malevolent and downright evil. On the other end of the spectrum, there's people that have the same lack of empathy, the same lack of conscience, but they don't necessarily enjoy murdering and torturing people, they enjoy fooling and taking advantage of people. And so you could say they're less evil because they're not actually, torturing and killing you, but they are still preying on you. But instead of taking your life and your blood, they're taking your energy and your life, your love and your money.
Correct. That's very true. So they have, psychopaths they're very organized in their strategy, right? They have what you call a modus operandi. What is that?
Modus operandi, yes, it's their way of doing things, their little program in the search for victims. So their modus operandi starts off with they need to find a vulnerable victim. Now, empaths send out a signal. I don't know, Randy. I'm a very skeptical person, so I tend to poo-poo psychic phenomenon. I keep an open mind to it. I like to explore it. I studied parapsychology when I was younger, but I'm still very skeptical. But there is something about an empathic person that will send out a signal to psychopaths, and it's like blood in the water to sharks. So, right? You know what I'm talking about, I'm sure.
I do.
Yeah, and I don't know if they pick it up psychically or if it's something in your behavior, but they pick up on it, and they spot you right away as a potential victim, and they will zero in on you because they know you're vulnerable. People with empathy are vulnerable because we care about other people, and that's how they get to us. They get to us through our love, which is, just so horrible and ironic because the one quality that makes us special on this planet is that quality that makes us also susceptible to these predators. Right. So they will spot a person with empathy. And so the first thing that they will do is they will, what they call the interview. They want to see what makes you tick and how best to play you. So what they're doing then is they'll be very friendly, and they'll start to question you. They'll be very interested in you, and they're fascinated by everything you say, and they like the way you look and the way you dress, and your opinion on things are very interesting. And the whole time they're doing this, of course, they are using another technique called mirroring. Now, all these people with the neuro-linguistic programming and how to manipulate people, they've written books about that mention the technique of mirroring. But what it is that you do what the other person does so that you start to resemble them. So then they think, oh, you're like me because you do the things like I do, and you agree with the things that I agree with, and you believe the things that I believe with. So you're like me, therefore I trust you. But that's a technique that they use, So it's a cheap magician's trick, It's just low life. I despise these people because they're really just low life little schemers and liars. But that's the technique that they use. So they'll get to know you. Hi, Randy, how are you? Oh, you like dogs? I love dogs. I have dogs myself, and I walk them all. Oh, you like the Beatles? Oh, yeah, I love the Beatles. I have all their albums, and so on and so on. So that's called mirroring you. And while they're mirroring you, they're also trying to pick out your weaknesses. Oh, your mother is a narcissist? Okay, so you're going to have mother issues. So now I know how I'm going to manipulate you by trying to, become like your mother but not like your mother, and use the weaknesses that your mother used to manipulate you. Because what happens, you meet people that remind you of your mother, right? Me too, because we attract them, again, because we are marked, right? We send that signal out. So now they're going to manipulate you that way. So that's the interview process. They're trying to get to know you, but most importantly, they're trying to get to find your weaknesses. The second stage in their little scheme is called the romance period. They're going to wine and dine you. They're going to shower you with attention. And, we all are flattered. I'm vain enough to be flattered when an attractive person takes an interest in me and says, oh, gee, Stefan, you're so smart. Tell me more. Sure, there's a part of me that gets flattered, right?
Right.
Because there's a little bit of vanity to all of us. We're human beings, and we want to believe that there's other people on the planet that think highly of us, and there's nothing wrong with that kind of vanity. The thing is, don't let it, get taken away. I have a big wall up. I might be flattered, but that doesn't mean I'm fooled.
Mm-hmm.
So they will shower you with attention, and then what happens is it kind of builds up. It's like a drug addiction, because you know what it's like when somebody is really interested in you and you feel flattered. There's a bit of an adrenaline rush. You feel good, Let's say you get up and you give a talk at a luncheon meeting, and people applaud and they come up to you afterwards, and that was a great talk, Randy, and you helped us so much. Thank you for coming. You feel good about yourself, and that's, endorphins, and it's an adrenaline rush. So what the psychopath would try to do is make you feel good about yourself. In the beginning, it's fun to be around them. You feel good, They're your soulmate. They're your companion, your counterpart. They make your life complete, right? So you get addicted to that kind of adrenaline rush. Once you get addicted to it, now they're like the drug dealer. Your next fix is going to cost you $40, and your next fix after that is going to cost you $80 plus interest, and then your next fix is going to cost you more. But what it's costing you is now your life, and your energy, and your love, and they start to restrict the attention they pay you, making you work harder and harder to get the same kind of feeling of value that you had earlier on. And then once you're kind of hooked like that, once you're addicted, then they pull the chain. Then the control starts to come in. Well, Randy, I would give you more attention, but unfortunately, you're too close to your kids, and you spend too much time with them. So, if you can spend more time with me and tell your rotten kids to go their own way, then I'll give you more attention. I'm just giving an example.
Right.
Because what they're going to do then is cut you away from the rest of your life. So they want to get rid of your family. If you're close to your family, they want to cut you away from your family. If you're close to your kids, they want to poison your attitude and your relationship with your children, so that now they have you more and more to themselves, because other people in your life is a threat to their control. So that's when the control starts to come in. First, they're going to isolate you from people and friends. And this is exactly what a lion does in the jungle, in the savannah. They search a herd of wildebeests. They search for the most vulnerable one, usually a baby or someone that's already sick and injured. Then they cull that individual wildebeest from the rest of the herd. And that's what they do with us. Same thing. First, they search for an appropriate victim. That's their interview stage. And then they charm them, which is, getting in close. And then once they're in close, they want to cut you off from the rest of your community, so that you're isolated. And once you're isolated, they go in for the kill. And depending on the type of psychopath that's manipulating, the kill is either actually killing you or simply having complete dictatorial control over your life.
Wow. I have quite a trail of people doing that to me over the years. Became stalkers, ended up suing me. I mean, so many different things that, I'm so on guard now, because it's happened to me so many times. Because as a person who has a conscience, you want to believe that everybody does, and you just kind of like, it makes you shake your head. Wait a minute. Wait. They can't be really thinking this. They can't be really doing this, because they have to have some kind of conscience, but these people don't.
No, you're right, and that's.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're right, and that is our biggest vulnerability. I was the same way, I assumed that everybody in the world basically thought the way I did. They might have, different opinions, this and that, but when it comes to, the core values in life, I thought everybody would share that with me. I thought everybody would be embarrassed if they've lied to your face. I thought everybody would be ashamed if they hurt a child, but no, they're not. And that's a weakness on our part. We got to figure out, the good people that are listening to your show right now have to understand that, no, these people don't think like you at all. And it's very difficult to try and think like they do, because we can't. We just can't predict or think like they do. And that is our biggest weakness. Sorry.
Do psychopaths leave a trail that we can, investigate so that we know who we're dealing with?
Yeah, they usually leave a trail of broken hearts and destruction. Yeah, but they're also very good at covering up that trail. So, when you meet a psychopath and they're charming you, and you're kind of curious because they never mention their family, that would be kind of a clue. How come you never talk about your family? Because why? You don't want me to meet your family? You don't want me to meet your friends from high school? You don't want me to meet your ex-girlfriends or your ex-boyfriends? That would be a clue too, because they're good at covering up their trails. But generally, if you do find out who they are and you go through their past history, there'll be a lot of people that say, yeah, that person was nothing but trouble my whole life.
I think we all know people like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And and we really do have to learn to trust our intuition. Trust what our gut tells us, because our gut tells us the truth, but our head tells us something else. And so and that's really with everything in life, that we have to learn to trust our feelings first before anything else, because I think we can cut right through this if we know, if we have that intuition and we're in touch with that. Don't you think?
I think so, but you know what? You have to really train it. It's I've given this kind of talks on psychopaths. I've spoken to people and tried to educate them on this subject, and they've gotten it. And then a week later they'll come back and say, "Oh, I met this wonderful person," and they'll start telling me about their their experiences, and I'm already picking up red flags. And I'm thinking, But didn't you just hear my talk on psychopaths, though? Did you not, get their modus operandi? Did you not already see all the warning signs? The thing is, you got to have, it's more than just, you need a kind of wisdom and experience,
Mm-hmm.
And you always have to have a little bit of self-doubt in your observations. First of all, we can never be more than 90% correct about anything anyways. We are all, fallible in our opinions, in our perceptions of what is real. So even myself, I take my own opinions with a big grain of salt, because I know that I am a fallible person and I will make mistakes in perception. So, yes, you can learn to spot them. Now I feel like I'm pretty good at it. I can spot them pretty much pretty quickly, and they spot me too. They get it. Just like, there's some sort of psychic connection between empaths and psychopaths, that they can see you coming down the street and they can pick up on you, and zero in on you. At the same time, once you are kind of, fully awake to their presence, they also seem to pick up on that. And I've walked into rooms where the psychopaths would take a look at me and suddenly head out the back door. So, because, they get it. And it's scary. It's because I'm trying to hide myself, too, because I don't want to show everybody that, I'm a tough guy or anything. I just want to blend in like the gray man, and observe the situation. So I don't want to make a big entrance and attract a lot of attention to myself. But there is some kind of almost psychic connection. They get you. You walk into the room. They know that you're not the guy that's going to be suckered by their little pantomime, their stupid little tricks anymore. And their biggest fear is being exposed for what they are, of having people not fall for their game. And so they don't want to be around you. And so I've seen that happen too. And I don't know on what level that takes place, if it's body language. It might even be something like smell. The ability to smell personality is actually well documented if you read Helen Keller, her book on how she was able to smell people's personalities. And so maybe that occurs on a subconscious level, or maybe there is some sort of psychic connection. I don't know. But either way, that's what happens. So when you study the subject and you learn to defend yourself, you get this kind of a wisdom, and that will eventually just repel them anyways.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to the point where I stay away from groups of people for the most part because, well, first of all, my energy can't take it. I mean, my sensitivity to energy can't take it. But there's always somebody that makes my skin crawl. So, so it's a really strange thing. Stefan, you've made several documentaries about this subject. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Probably the most famous or the best known one is my documentary, Defense Against the Psychopath. And all I did was basically narrate chapter 1 from the book, The Art of Urban Survival, and then I added my own imagery to the narration to sort of illustrate and break some of the programming that we have, because we always think of psychopaths as evil, low-level, stereotypical criminals. And some of them are like that, definitely. But the majority of people, the majority of psychopaths are not the serial killers. The majority are, entertainers and business people and religious leaders and politicians and kings and emperors. They're the psychopaths. And, on the scale of destruction caused in society, they far outnumber the destruction the individual criminals cause. For example, you take the Green River killer, maybe 40 to 60 victims. Yes, horrendous, horrible. 60 people murdered by one guy. But compared to a president or a prime minister who launches an illegal war on a country that kills 1 million people, well, they're not even in the same league. So by far the most dangerous and destructive to our society are the higher level psychopaths. And so I illustrate that in the video Defense Against the Psychopath.
I did watch that. That was really, really good. Very, very powerful documentary. And I know you've made a couple of other ones. As we wind down, we still have a little bit of time, but is there anything that, can you tell us about, anything else that you want to, and also how to reach you and where your documentaries are and how to get your book and all that stuff?
Sure. The book is called The Art of Urban Survival, and it's a book on, crime prevention, emergency preparedness, what to do if there's World War III or martial law. It's the kind of book I wrote for my 20-year-old daughter before she went to go to college, because you want to tell her about everything that could possibly go wrong when you're away from the home, which is, crime and stalkers and street gangs, and what to do if you get on a city bus, or what to do if you get lost in a bad neighborhood, and then what to do if there's a hurricane, a blackout, what to do if there's riots on the street, what to do if suddenly there's a martial law is declared and you're locked in your home, or there's a pandemic running through the college and you're in quarantine. So it's pretty much everything from A to Z that could possibly go wrong in an urban city, and how to protect yourself and defend yourself against it. And that is why Defense Against a Psychopath is the very first chapter, because the first thing everybody needs to learn about in order to be safe in our society, and that is how to protect yourself against the primary predator of our jungle. Listen, it's an urban jungle, and we still have dangerous predators out there, and therefore you need to learn about those predators. I make the analogy, if we were, bunny rabbits, we would be writing books on how to defend against foxes, because that would be your primary predator. Learn how to identify a fox, learn how they operate, Same with us as humans. Learn how to identify a psychopath, learn how they operate, learn how to defend yourself against it. So it's part of a self-defense course, and it's part of a psychological self-defense course. But since they're the primary danger in our society, that's why it's chapter 1 in the book. So you can find my books on my website, is chinastrategies.com, or just Google my name, Stefan Verstappen. I'm on YouTube, same name, Stefan Verstappen, and you'll find all the information at my website or on my YouTube channel.
Right, and Stefan is Stefan, and your last name is Verstappen, just because some people hear it and can't necessarily spell it. So
yeah, I know.
We want to make sure they can find you.
I cursed my parents for that name, but it's Dutch, and it was too late to change it by the time I realized what a handicap it was. I wish it was, Remington Steele would have been a better name.
No, it stands out. I like it. I see nothing wrong with your name. You have a very nice name.
Oh, well, thank you,
Mandy. So anyway, well, this has been so. I could talk to you about psychopaths all day. This could go on for hours and hours and hours, because I just think it is so fascinating. But I also think it's so important for people to hear this and not to be so trusting. And but I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I did read The Art of Urban Survival. It's great. It is great. It should be in every single home. We all need this book. So I urge you to go get a copy. And but thank you so much, Stefan, for coming on and sharing all this information with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, Randy. And thank you for your article on empaths, because it's another facet to this discussion. It's really an important facet, especially for people like you and me and the other listeners out there that wonder, why are we always being targeted?
Mm-hmm.
And now
exactly.
we know.
Exactly. Now we know. So, well, anyway, keep sending me these documentaries, and maybe we'll have you back on to talk about one of those.
Yeah, I've got another book coming out shortly, and I'd be happy to come on and talk about that.
Okay, what is that book?
Well, it's called The Community Survival Plan. It's how to, organize a community to look out for each other during the hard times that are coming. And it includes a test to determine if somebody might be a psychopath, so you can make sure that whatever community group you form, you don't include a psychopath in that group, because they will ruin it,
Okay, great. Well, you definitely let
right.
me know when that comes out, and then you'll come back on and we'll talk about it. All right,
definitely, that'd be great.
I've got to go and say goodbye, but
okay.
But thanks again.
Thank you, Randy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. If you enjoy listening to my shows, please become a show follower, because I have great programming coming up. If you think this show's great, and it really is fantastic, I have some really great ones coming up. You can check out my show page and see what's on the horizon. But if you become a show follower, you'll just get that information right away. So all you have to do is go to any show page, and at the top, I think there's a follow button you can just click on. All my shows are archived after broadcasting and can be listened to at your convenience on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, or through the show links on my website. Thanks again for tuning in and listening to A Fine Time for Healing. This is talk radio show host and author Randi Fine, signing off until next time. May joy and serenity always be yours. Goodbye.